when you say, what do you start when you're so down physically and physiologically? I need you to understand you start getting up by changing the nutrients and the sustenance that we're feeding our minds and we're feeding our bodies. Now, that's just the starting point. This is how I started as well with my physical health in 2012. And that became the domino that knocked down all the rest of them, because it was that same year that I started my weight loss journey in 2012. I started in January. I don't think it's a coincidence. By October of that year, I was resigning from my 9-to-5 as a foster care worker. I was accepting an internship from the federal government, and I was preparing to move overseas. Like, there was something about owning my health personally that put me back in the driver's seat. It was so empowering to take back my power from food and substances. And that was the domino that knocked down all the decisions I then went on to make to get to a place of peace. Optimal health is not a privilege, it's a right. However, unfortunately, the overwhelming majority of health challenges today can be attributed to lifestyle. This includes our physical activity, the quality of our relationships, stress, purpose and fulfillment, and of course, our diet. But what if there was an alternative? What if we could prevent and combat these health challenges with lifestyle changes before pills and procedures? You are listening to the Plant Protocol podcast with yours truly, plant-based health and business coach, and now the forever voice in your head, Lisa A. Smith. It's time to come get this health. Let me ask you something. How much is stress costing you? Is it costing you your energy, your focus, your health, your peace? See, most of us have been told to manage chronic stress, but here's the truth. Managing chronic stress isn't enough. You deserve to eliminate it at the root. That's why we created the Clarity Lab, where stress meets strategy. The Clarity Lab is a 5-day immersive stress focus group. It's an experience that's designed to help you uncover your biggest stress triggers, reframe how you respond to pressure, and build a personalized strategy for sustainable health and performance. In just 5 days, you will walk away better understanding what's at the root of your stress, what limiting beliefs have been keeping you stuck, and more important, how to start moving with confidence, control, and clarity. And the best part, you won't do it alone. You'll be guided by myself and my team of coaches alongside a powerful community on the journey to do the exact same thing. So if you're ready to stop paying the price of stress and start living with clarity, join us inside of our next Clarity Lab. Spots are limited, but you can secure yours right now at lisaangelsmith.com/Clarity Lab. That's lisaangelsmith.com/Clarity Lab. Clarity Lab is where stress meets strategy. So click the link in the show notes and get registered for this complimentary 5-day stress focus group. I'll see you in the lab. Welcome back. How stressed are you really? Let me tell you something. Many moons ago, I used to believe that stress was simply caused by things that were technically overwhelming, like experiences that you wanted to be rid of in your life, right? I thought chronic stress came from stuff like a career that you were misaligned with, a relationship where you guys weren't on one accord. I thought stress came from like unexpected losses and unexpected events that happens to all of us. I thought stress came from chronically neglecting yourself in your own needs, right? I thought stress came from not having boundaries and all of these misconceptions. And it wasn't until this year, 2025, where I got crystal clear about the fact that stress is not just caused by circumstances in your life that you no longer want to be in, right? Stress is not just caused by a failed relationship or a turbulent relationship with family, friends, or your children. Stress is not just caused by working a job that you've outgrown. Like, this was news to me, right? And the reason I thought this is because my personal experience with stress in the past has come from situations like that. And the individuals that we've coached at our company, the Plant Protocol, their stressful situations come from situations like that. So I've done all of the hard things. Like I've left a long-term relationship. We were engaged to be married, and I walked away from a relationship that wasn't on the surface level bad. He's a great person. We got along great. It's just that our vision for the future was misaligned. It wasn't any drama, but I had to walk away from a relationship where I didn't feel like we were aligned. I've had to walk away from a job where I felt like I wasn't getting the best opportunities to grow in the way that I desire to grow. And that's tough because it was a state job and it had benefits and it had all of the things that they say you're supposed to have to secure your future, right? But I've had to do the stressful thing of working a job I didn't like for some time while I worked up the courage to leave that situation. And then I've had to do the difficult thing of working through childhood disappointment, having to do the work to heal from being disappointed, let down, or traumatically impacted by an occurrence in our childhood. That is stressful when you haven't healed from stuff that has negatively impacted you. So y'all, I previously thought, what a major misconception, but I admit that I previously thought that stress only came from situations like that, situations that you needed to leave, right? Like I really thought stress was only caused by like situations that nobody wanted to be in, like health stuff with your family and friends and people you love, loss, all of those things, financial hardship, all of those things. And it wasn't until I went through a severe season of burnout, probably for the past many years, but especially this year at the first quarter of 2025, when I realized this was groundbreaking, this was earth shattering to me. But going through a severe season of burnout is when I learned that stress doesn't just come from things that you don't like, from circumstances that are not ideal. I learned the first quarter of this year that stress could come from circumstances that you want to be in. Like this was so earth shattering to me. Because when you have a misconception that stress only comes from working a job you hate or being in a misaligned relationship or being unhealed from disappointment in past experiences, then you don't realize when you are still in a situation that can technically take a negative impact on your health because you're like, I love everything I'm doing and things are great and I enjoy this and it's amazing. And who knew, right? But I got stressed from stuff that I enjoy. I got stressed from doing work that I feel completely aligned with. I got stressed from living in my purpose. And that's not easy to say because when you're living in your purpose, things are supposed to flow. But when you have an unhealthy relationship with doing and work, that's where it gets dangerous. So today, I'm so excited to geek out with you guys. You guys know how I love science. You know how I love geeking out. So today is a super geeky episode. I'm going to be breaking down for you 4 areas that usually shows indication of stress. And I'm going to give you one measure from each area so you can assess yourself. But then I've also gifted you guys with our free mini stress assessment. I'm excited to give you guys a mini assessment live today. And then I also have another one that you can take on your own and really get an understanding of how stressed are you really, right? So I'm Lisa A. Smith, founder of the Plant Protocol. We specialize in helping leaders, speakers, entrepreneurs understand how to take care of their body and their mind for the highest amount of productivity as they live a life of radical obedience. So we love helping individuals who feel called to the work that they're doing, but need to better understand how to optimize their body and their mind. So we do that through whole food, plant-based nutrition, and most importantly, helping you guys understand how to eliminate chronic stress. So let's get to it. I told you guys the first quarter of this year, I came face to face with burnout, right? Face to face with some burnout. And I burnt out from things that I enjoy doing, right? So that was the first eye opener from that experience, is that burnout and overwhelm and stress does not always come from situations that you need to leave, or it doesn't always come from self-neglect. Burnout is not always caused by us not having boundaries or the inability to say no. That's only one place that stress can come from. But you can have boundaries. You can be very familiar with the word no and not afraid to use it. And you can be working a job that you love. And you can be in loving and healthy relationships. And you can be intentional about taking time and making time for yourself, for your health, for the things that you enjoy. And you can still be stressed out. I'm telling you, that was news for me because that was my situation. Classic. Many years ago, I went through the other situations, a job I didn't love, a relationship I needed to leave, healing from abandonment from my father, being overweight, right? And that's the source of a lot of people's stress. But did you know you can have none of those things and still be stressed? And burnout is a form of chronic stress, which is why I bring it up and use that terminology, right? So here's what I realized in the last several years as I've been talking and teaching about stress. We use the word stress so casually, y'all, so much so that we've watered down the severity of it. We've watered down the severity of stress because we use it passively. Like we use stress like we'll say like, what you working on? Oh, this stressful, like I'm planning this wedding, or I got this big project at work, or I'm going through this health thing, or my kid is going through this thing. And we're like, it's so stressful. I was talking to one of our participants in our 30-day vegan challenge earlier this year. And I was like, how are you feeling? Where's your stress? She was like, oh, it's so stressful. I just got back in town and because I was visiting family, and then I got to finish up these projects for school. And we just label everything as stress. And she was using it so passively. And I was like, I'm sorry. What part of it was stressful? Because those all sound like blessings. And we had such a really good laugh because I was waiting for her to articulate some hardship, right? And so we have watered down the severity of stress. And, this makes me think about the same thing we've done with things like being overweight or having hypertension or having high cholesterol or, having chronic aches and pains or losing our memory or being sleep deprived. Like we say those things so casually that we don't even understand the severity of them when we articulate it. Like we'll have high blood pressure and we'll be on medication for it, or we'll have blood sugar issues, or for a lot of us, we're just overweight. And it's not a big deal to us. I mean, we want to lose the weight, but we're also not acting with the urgency that we would act if it was cancer. Y'all know what I'm saying? And so we don't treat stress with a level of severity and urgency that we do other diagnoses. And it bothers me. So I'm here today to give you guys a little science to help you better understand the severity of dealing with chronic stress. Before I do that, let me remind you guys that all stress is not created equal, right? So we want to remember that. And we want to remember that some stress is extremely healthy, and it's okay to have a little stress in our lives. But when it becomes chronic, these prolonged periods of overwhelm, that's when it becomes deadly, because chronic stress kills. And so we have everyday stress. Life is going to life. Things are going to happen. Things are going to break down. Things are going to go wrong. We're going to lose opportunities. We're going to lose people, right? We're going to be faced with traumatic circumstances that require, an extraordinary amount of work to correct. And that's everyday stress. And we need stress management techniques for that type of stress. We need stress management for acute stress, right? However, there are other types of stress that we've been dealing with for years, and not because we have to, but for a lot of us, many of us are just refusing to make tough decisions. We're avoiding difficult conversations. We're settling. We're allowing fear to make decisions for us. And that type of stress is the type of stress that kills us, because we don't actually have to be in this state of pain and suffering for as long as we are. We're choosing to, because the solution is hard or unfamiliar. And that type of stress is extremely dangerous. So I'm going to go through some subtle signs today that you may be dealing with chronic stress. And I want you to understand that stress management techniques, the meditation, the prayer, the yoga, the vacation days, the self-care, the time off, is great for everyday acute stress. It does not solve chronic stress. Chronic stress requires a bigger emotional and cognitive lift. All right. So chronic stress kills, and stress management doesn't work for chronic stress. Those are the two things I need you to foundationally understand for us to proceed today. Stress management is a thing. We all need it. Our days go crazy all the time. Our weeks go crazy all the time. You got things happening politically and culturally that might cause us overwhelm. You got financially, like we're all adulting, right? So stress is going to be a part of our lives, guys. But I want you guys to be wise enough. I want you guys to be self-aware enough to know, okay, this is normal. This is not. I'm going to have to work harder to eliminate this, or this is going to escalate and reach a point of no return and have potentially irreversible effects on my health and my well-being. That type of stress we should be avoiding at all costs. And unfortunately, an overwhelming majority of us are dealing with that type of stress. Like, you got to get out the relationship. You can't just stay in it and manage it if it's killing you. Like, you got to switch careers. You got to make an exit strategy from that job. You got to create an exit strategy from that project and those responsibilities that you can no longer uphold. Like, you need to do something about the health. You can't just manage in the disease. It's gone too far, right? You got to do something about your insecurities and your confidence. It's killing you because you're not operating on assignment and in your purpose. And therefore you're unfulfilled. And that's what causes the bad eating habits and the dependence on alcohol and the dependence on substance, because you're not in your purpose. You shouldn't manage that type of stress. When you're out of alignment, that is not an invitation for stress management. That's an invitation to make tougher, harder decisions, right? We have a strategy that we teach inside of our community, Clarity, which is our community dedicated to the elimination of chronic stress. And it's called her method, right? Because it's what I personally have done to get out of those difficult situations like the work and the relationship and my health issues. And it's called her method, right? And we teach how to create in the her method an exit, an enter, and an engagement strategy from chronic stress. That's a heavy lift because most of us are accustomed to managing conditions. We're accustomed to managing our weight, managing our eating habits, managing our stress. But some things require complete elimination. Some things require a complete shift in how you operate your whole life so that you don't get back here, right? And so that's what I want you to understand. We have to stop managing things that are meant to be eliminated. Stop it. There's no reason we should be managing type 2 diabetes for 10 years. We should not be managing chronic stress from a job we hate for another 20 years. You're going to have to do something heavier, harder. You're going to have to lift something heavier in order to get back to a place of peace. So let's get into it. 4 pieces of scientific evidence from 4 different areas. And I want to break this down for you of how you may be stressed. So let's do this. Everybody go grab your crayon, grab your pencil, grab your pen. I'm going to give you just a 4-question test, and you can say yay or nay to this assessment. And it might be super helpful for you and hopefully motivate you to start digging a little deeper and start asking some tougher questions. Here's my confession. In my many years as an entrepreneur, I've had multiple experiences of burnout. And it wasn't until I started deep diving into the science of stress that I better understood burnout. And it helped me realize 2 major things. The first is that burnout is a form of chronic stress. And the second is that you can become burnt out from things that you genuinely enjoy. And you can still be taking care of yourself, eating right, exercising, taking time off, and still become burnt out. That was my circumstance. And that's why it took me so long to recognize that I was actually experiencing chronic stress. So I have a question for you. How stressed are you really? Because stress doesn't always shout at us. Sometimes it whispers. It hides in our fatigue, our headaches, our irritability, and even our sleep or how we eat. It shows up in our bodies and our minds long before we notice. And that's also why we created our stress assessment. In just a few minutes, you'll discover where stress may be hiding in your life and what it's costing you. The assessment is free, it's fast, and it might just give you the clarity you've been looking for. So click the link in the show notes to take our stress assessment today and see your results. Clarity is waiting on the other side. So the first area that gives us evidence of chronic stress is cognitive and emotional. So here's a check for you. Here's the question. Do you frequently feel anxious, worried, or restless? Okay. And this is in the area of cognitive and emotional, one of the areas that is extremely impacted by stress. Now, let me tell you how this works. When you feel these persistent feelings of anxiety or worry, this is a stress response that keeps the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is just a small part of our brain that's responsible for processing our emotions. Okay. And so if you have a persistent experience of anxiety or worry, what happens is the stress response keeps the amygdala hyperactive, and that increases anxious thought. Now, I told y'all I was going to geek out a little bit. Y'all know I love the science. So I'm going to say it one more time. Cognitive or emotional is the area that is impacted by stress. If you have persistent feelings, not just like it's acute, like, oh, I'm about to do this big presentation, I feel nervous. That's acute. But I mean, it never really shuts off. Okay? It never really shuts off. Feelings of anxiety, worry, or restlessness. That means your amygdala, small part of your brain that's responsible for processing emotions, is hyperactive. We should not be there constantly. Not constantly, right? It's okay acutely because things that happen that's going to trigger some anxiety. That's a natural human response. But if you said yes to number one, I need you to know that that is not what it should be on a regular basis. I try and avoid the word normal, right? I try and avoid the word normal, but we should not be feeling persistent feelings of anxiety, worry, or restlessness. I remember when I used to work for the state of Michigan, back in the day, mine came from my job. So when I was a foster care worker, I absolutely experienced this working with families whose children had just been removed. Then I had to work with the court system to try and get the children and the families reunited. Then I had to work with all the other service providers in Michigan, parenting classes, substance abuse classes. Like it was so much, right? Then I'm in a field and I'm a bit of a germaphobe. So I'm going to people's homes and I don't want to make them feel weird, but I don't want to touch their stuff or sit on their furniture. So literally being in the field and having to go into strangers' homes gave me a little bit of anxiety. There were so many different aspects of my job that made me feel anxious, right? Which should have been, had I been wise, should have been a signal like, oh, I'm not supposed to wake up worried. I'm not supposed to constantly be incessantly worrying and thinking about things. I'm not supposed to feel restless. I'm supposed to be at peace physically and mentally. Who knew, right? So that's number one. Cognitive and emotional is one area where chronic stress shows up. And one indicator of that is persistent feelings of anxiety and worry. Let's get into number two. So rate yourself number two. We're going through 4 of them. Another area that's significantly impacted by stress is sleep and energy. Sleep and energy. So here's the question. Do you feel tired or low energy even after a full night's sleep? Right? So is there a constant fatigue despite adequate rest? That's the question. Like, are you always kind of pretty much tired, no matter what, no matter the circumstance, no matter whether or not you got some rest? Is there constant fatigue despite adequate rest? So let me give you the science behind this one. Stress impacts mitochondrial function, right? So mitochondria, small things inside of our cells that are responsible for generating and producing ATP, energy, okay? But when you are stressed, right, when your body is in a constant state of stress and you have these elevated levels of stress hormones, then that impacts the functioning of your mitochondria and your metabolism, right? So constant fatigue despite adequate rest. That's number 2, a second indicator that you might be chronically stressed. And when I tell you the sleep and the energy part is such a big deal, because you guys know like how much energy do we typically need to get through our to-do list every day, to get through work. And like, God forbid, you're trying to get through a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9. You like, I work for them during the day and I'm trying to build my own thing at night. And trying to have enough energy, not just physically, but like creatively and cognitively to get through that can be so tough if you're chronically stressed because it's not a sleep issue, right? It's a hormone issue here, right? It is, I have these stress hormones that are constantly flooding my body and they're literally impacting my ability to get adequate rest even when I go to sleep. So I need you guys to understand it's not just about, okay, I got to sleep more. It's about, I have to eliminate the stress because as long as my stress levels are elevated, my sleep and my rest is not going to be optimal. It's not going to be restorative, right? So sleep and energy, big deal. Our sleep hygiene plays such a major part in our ability to function optimally. Did you guys know that it's said, and a lot of science and studies have shown this, that being sleep deprived, for example, and driving is just as dangerous as driving intoxicated. That's how dangerous it is to be sleep deprived. So imagine you're trying to make like real world everyday decisions and you're sleep deprived and you're constantly fatigued. So chronic fatigue is such a dangerous condition to have. So if chronic stress is the source of your chronic fatigue, then this is an invitation to make tougher decisions and do harder work to eliminate the stress. So that was number 2. Sleep and energy was the second area that chronic stress impacts. So let's get into number 3, which is physical and health. So some of y'all said yes, some of y'all said no on that one. Okay, very good. Make sure you're scoring yourself. Be honest with yourself about what needs to change here. Let's get into number 3, physical health. By the way, I'm pulling these questions from our assessment, right? We literally have created a science-backed chronic stress assessment that rates you in all of these areas. Now, our assessment is about 24 questions, but I'm pulling just a couple of them to give you guys some examples. But here's an example. Here's question number 3, physical health. Have you had things like heart palpitations, chest tightness, or even high blood pressure? And so here's how stress impacts those things. So you have physical indicators that things may be off. And sometimes we don't know where they come from. Like I know we've had students in our programs who are like, I'm going to the doctor, I'm getting tested, and they can't find anything. And I'm like, I don't know where this is coming from. And they not realizing it's emotional, like it's stress, right? It's not necessarily a diagnosis, but you have high blood pressure or heart palpitations or chest tightness. That literally could be stress, right? So how does this happen? How does this work? Stress elevates your sympathetic nervous system activity, increasing cardiovascular risk. All right. So stress is a health risk. We all know that intellectually. But again, like I said earlier, because we use the term so passively, we've watered down the severity of it. And that's what makes me nervous, is that a lot of us don't understand when we're constantly claiming that we're stressed and we're constantly experiencing stress, we don't realize how dangerous that is. And so we don't take urgent action. But I need you guys to understand that stress is one of the leading causes of cardiovascular risk. And if the number 1 cause of death in the United States is heart disease, cardiovascular conditions, you guys have to understand that all of that is not food and exercise. A lot of it is stress. Okay. So number 3 was chest tightness, high blood pressure, heart palpitations. Is that an experience for you? Some of you, yes, some of you, no. Okay. So let's get into number 4. Let's get into our last one. The last one is in the category of behavior and lifestyle. Behavior and lifestyle. Here's the question. Do you feel behind on your responsibilities or struggle to perform at your usual level? Do you constantly feel behind on your responsibilities or struggle to perform at your usual level? Man, I think one of the most common things, so we launched our business accelerator 4 years ago in 2021. We launched our business accelerator, and our business accelerator is a minimum of a year. So if you want us to help you like build your coaching business, build your speaking career, you're going to be with us a minimum of a year. Okay. And I think maybe, I don't know, let's roughly call it 7 to 8 months into the business accelerator, I started hearing students say, like, I feel like I'm so behind. I feel like I'm so behind. It's like a constant thing, constantly feeling like you're behind, like you need to catch up. You need to catch up. You need to catch up. And a lot of that for a lot of us is self-imposed. For a lot of us, a lot of that is like, I had a timeline in my mind on the rate at which things should be getting accomplished. And because I'm not hitting that made up timeline, I'm behind. So constantly feeling like you're behind, but also piggybacking on that, constantly feeling like you're not performing at your usual level. I used to feel like that when I still ate sugar too. So as a speaker, constantly on stage, as a teacher, constantly on the mic, as a coach, constantly in sessions with individuals and coaching them, there were times where I didn't feel like I was performing at my best. Like, I'm like, whoa, my brain doesn't feel as sharp right now. Like I can't formulate my sentences and grasp my words and put my thoughts together like I'm used to. Like, one of the gifts of working really hard to optimize your health is that you get to experience what your best is like. And some of you guys listening, I don't think you've ever experienced your best. I don't think you've ever experienced yourself at your most optimal level. And that could be a gift and a curse, because if you never have, you don't know what you're missing. Like you really don't know that what you're giving is not your best. But if you have felt what it feels like to operate at your best cognitively, emotionally, physically. When you're not, that becomes glaringly obvious, right? I have people work for me and I can tell when they're not at their best. And I'm like, you good? Like, we don't have to work. Are you good? Like, I could tell you not, this ain't your best, right? And so one of the things I really want for you guys, and I want you to embody this, is I want you to do everything in your power to optimize your health physically, mentally, and emotionally. So even if it's just for one season, I want you to experience what it feels like to be the absolute best version of you. I want you to see what it feels like to be free of the brain fog, to be free of the chronic fatigue, to be free from the pain, to be free from the dependency on substances. I want you to experience what it feels like and what it looks like to not need something to feel your best. Like when people come into our 30-day challenge, for example, we have people who are like, I can't do this without coffee. And I'm like, dang, that's crazy that you need a substance to feel your best. Like, how am I supposed to feel awake without caffeine? How am I supposed to decompress without wine at the end of the day? How am I supposed to enjoy my show without salty and greasy snacks? Like this dependency on other things to feel optimal. I would love for you guys to get to a place where you feel like you can speak and all the things come together and it's clear for you and it's clear to the listener. I would love for you guys to get to a place where you move throughout the world in your best body. I would love for you guys to get to a place where you operate from a healthy state of mind, where your thoughts and ideas are so clear that you're able to articulate yourself and you're able to express your emotions in a healthy way. And I would just love that for you guys, because I don't think you guys understand like all of the dependency we have on things, all of this sedentary lifestyle means not being able to walk up a flight of steps and not being able to travel the way we want to and not being able to play with the young babies like we want to. Like, I want you guys to know what you're missing out on, right? And so this fourth one, number 4, as you can see, that's the one for me. That comes from our behavior and lifestyle category, right? Do you constantly feel behind on your responsibilities or struggle to perform at your usual level? But what's crazy is you sometimes don't know what your usual level is. Whatever you felt up until this point, it can get better. Like, take all the foolishness out of your diet. Do the work to get rid of every relationship and every circumstance that distracts you mentally. Do you know what it's like to work and perform without emotional and relational distractions? I'm just saying, I just want to invite you guys to the best version of yourself. And it starts with assessments like this. It starts with being asked the right questions so that you can really assess what work still needs to be done. Because a lot of us, we're settling. We're settling in our career because we're too afraid to do something different. We're settling in our relationships because we're too afraid to have difficult conversations or be alone. We're settling in our health because we're too afraid to have a meal that we don't enjoy. We're settling in every area and it's killing us. That's all I really came to say today. That's all I really came to say. So for the past decade, I've been helping people with their physical health. But the one thing that I realized is that by the time I start helping you with your physical health, with your weight, with your blood pressure, with your immune system, with mental clarity and getting rid of the brain fog, I realized that the past decade, we've been helping people with that stuff. But all of that stuff is typically what happens after prolonged stress. So now we're going back to the starting line for you guys. We're going back to ground zero, right? We need to start asking you the questions to help you assess where you are so that you can make different decisions before it leads to heart disease, before it leads to kidney failure, before it leads to amputations, before it leads to a cancer diagnosis. Like, we need to start asking you guys these harder questions now. How could life look different from you 5 years from now if you did something about the job you hate today? How could life look different from you 5 years from now if you did something about the debt that's causing you overwhelm today? That's it. That's the question. So here's the invitation. There's a link pinned in the notes that's going to invite you to take our mini stress assessment. It takes probably 2 minutes. And so it's going to be an extension of the questions I asked you guys today. I asked you 4 questions today. That mini stress assessment maybe has 12 questions. Our major stress assessment that we give our students inside of Clarity, that's our robust assessment, right? But we created a mini version of it for you guys today because I think everything starts with self-awareness. And while you may know that you're overwhelmed or burnt out like I was or stressed, the issue for me is that you probably don't know the severity of it. And so hopefully asking intentionally curated and designed questions will help you to see like, oh, this is more dire than I thought it was. And I can't afford to keep going at this rate that I've been going. Everything starts with awareness. I remember my coach has an assessment, and I've been taking the assessment for years. I take it about once a year. And it was that assessment that taught me that I was an introvert, for an example. Like there's some things that you can't do because you don't know. And so there's things that I learned about myself by taking that assessment. And so I'm such team assessments, as long as they're curated with science and expertise and mastery. So all of ours are backed by science. All of the scientific data that shows indicators of chronic stress, we've put into our assessments to make sure that you guys have a tool to use to help you measure where you should be working in your life. So that is what I came to tell y'all today. Let's get into these takeaways and these questions. I think I saw a super cool comment that I want to pull up. Being chronically unfulfilled causes chronic stress. Yes, that was a major nugget with Malika today. Being chronically unfulfilled causes chronic stress. Absolutely, Malika. And I don't think we understand the consequences. It's the consequences of disobedience, essentially, right? Because radical obedience is doing what you're being called to do, despite the presence of fear and uncertainty. But when we ignore that, because we're allowing fear to take over, because we have a lack mindset or whatever's running or making our decisions for us, you can be chronically unfulfilled. Like you can be chronically unfulfilled, and that can cause stress, like not being happy in what you're doing, not feeling like you're making a significant contribution to mankind, not feeling like your gifts and your talents are being optimized, or what we call self-actualization. Like that can lead to feelings of disappointment. That can lead to low mood. That can lead to feelings of inadequacy, right? I'm so grateful that I feel like my gifts and my talents are being used up. I'm so grateful. Like I want the cup empty when I go. I want to know that I gave everything I had to the people who needed it. And so being chronically unfulfilled 100% can lead to stress, right? It's not always circumstances like you have no boundaries. You don't know how to say no. You don't take care of yourself. You could be working out every morning, eating a perfectly plant-based diet, have healthy friendships, be in a great marriage or relationship with a partner. You can have a great relationships with your family and friends. You can be taking vacations and doing all the cool things, but you could be privately unfulfilled and still be stressed out. It's a real thing. So our community, Clarity, is a community dedicated to optimizing your physical health, helping you to eliminate chronic stress, and then help you go on to live a life of radical obedience. And that is just being in complete alignment with what you're being called to do in any area of your life, right? Radical obedience. It's all about doing what you're being called to do. And so inside of Clarity, guys, we'll be opening it up for the general public next month in September. We have our beta group in right now, about 20 something people that we're walking through with them and taking the journey with them. And then we'll be opening it up to the larger community starting, I believe, in September. But we're really excited about helping you guys better dial in and hone in on what it means to be chronically stressed and why we can't keep watering down this condition. And we got to better understand the severity of it because it can be really dangerous. It can be really dangerous. And so that's our mission with Clarity. That's what we're inviting you to. So after you take our assessment, you'll be able to hop on the wait list for Clarity and make your decision on whether or not you want to be supported, right? And so I'm super excited for moving in this direction and hopefully catching people before the heart disease and the diabetes and the fatty liver disease and all of that shows up. That's what I'm most excited for. Wanda said, do everything possible to optimize your health. Yes. And so a lot of times, guys, that comes with making really tough decisions. And it's not easy. I get it. But your health will be compromised if you don't do it. I think, you know what I think, y'all? And I'm going to just say this. I don't know if y'all agree or not, but I think actually something that has slowly went from being like a benefit to almost being a handicap to us is our doggone intelligence. Because the more educated you are sometimes, the more you can outwit yourself, right? Like you can know at the root what something is, and then you can instantly use your intelligence. Like your emotions, your body will tell you one thing, but then you can use all your degrees and your certifications to like outwit yourself, right? And justify it. Right? I know in business, you know, they say when it comes to sales, people make by with emotions and justify with logic, right? And I think we do the same thing with ourselves. We have an emotional experience, but then we justify the decision we make after with logic. I'll give you a prime example. Like, we make emotional decisions to eat trash when we don't feel good, right? Like, oh, I need some grease, I need some fried food, I want some fast food, I want some junk, right? And so we're like, I need to soothe myself. And then we justify it with logic by saying stuff like everything in moderation. A little bit won't hurt, right? We justify it with like this illogical logic, but we make emotional decisions first. And so that's so good. How do you even start when you're so down and out physiologically and mentally? The best place to start is with your physical health. So one of the things that getting healthy does, when I say getting healthy, that means removing everything out of your diet that is disease promoting, right? And so this is, okay, you know what? I need to stop drinking. I need to stop eating this sugar. I need to stop eating this fast food. I need to start drinking water. I need to start eating vegetables. I need to make a decision that aligns with the most optimal version of my physical body in a clear mind. The primary reason I say start with like what you're eating, what you're drinking, and how you're moving is because while it's going to help you, no doubt about it, from the neck down, the most help it's going to give you is from the neck up. So what happens when we eat a lot of ultra processed food, when we eat a bunch of saturated fat and cholesterol and a bunch of oil and super salty things, is it reconfigures our gut microbiome. So these are these little bugs that live in our digestive system in our gut, right? And what happens when we feed them all of that synthetic food, fake food, fast food, lab-made food, ultra-processed stuff, man-made supplements, and all of this stuff, is it completely alters our chemistry in our body, which then impacts our ability to think clearly and make sound decisions. Like serotonin, for example, the neurotransmitter that plays a huge role in mood and depression. Over 80% of it is produced in our gut. So our gut health impacts our mental health, our brain health. When you say, what do you start when you're so down physically and physiologically? I need you to understand, you start getting up by changing the nutrients and the sustenance that we're feeding our minds and we're feeding our bodies. Now, that's just the starting point. There's still a lot more that we need to do, but I would encourage you by making better decisions. If you're not already, I don't know how you eat, but making the most optimal decisions that you can for how you feed your body and your mind. The other thing, this is what it's done for me. This is how I started as well with my physical health in 2012. And that became the domino that knocked down all the rest of them, because it was that same year that I started my weight loss journey in 2012. I started in January. I don't think it's a coincidence. By October of that year, I was resigning from my 9-to-5 as a foster care worker. I was accepting an internship from the federal government, and I was preparing to move overseas. Like, there was something about owning my health personally that put me back in the driver's seat. It was so empowering to take back my power from food and substances and the couch, right? Like, I made the gym a priority. I made my diet a priority. And that was the domino that knocked down all the decisions I then went on to make to get to a place of peace, right? And so getting re-empowered through your health, but it also, I will say the final thing that being intentional about your health does is it improves your hearing, right? And I don't mean physically, I don't mean audibly, right? I mean spiritually. So you're spiritually able to hear what God wants from you when the channels are clear. We cannot hear good spiritually when we are clogged up physically, right? So when we have a lot of sugar on the brain, a lot of caffeine on the brain, when we have a dependency on synthetic, man-made drugs, supplements, foods, whatever, it's very hard to hear clearly. It's very hard to make tough decisions. It's very hard to trust the decisions you make. It's very hard to seek out wise counsel. It's very hard to ask for the help that you need, right? So that's where I would start. And we'll be happy to help you with that if that's something that you need. Tamika said, being in this ecosystem has tremendously helped me reduce stress. Last year, this time, I would have answered yes to all of those questions. Yes, that's the improvement we like to see and hear. And that's why assessments are so dope too. That's why we use assessments in our company so much. We have probably 4 assessments. I have a coaching business assessment. I have a radical obedience assessment. We have a chronic stress assessment, and we have an optimal health assessment, right? And I use assessments for the reason that Tamika just pointed out, which is it helps you very clearly measure where you start versus where you are. And it's so dope to take an assessment and then take it again, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months later and be like, whoa, the improvement is phenomenal. So in our plant-based coaching program, Farm to Table, all of our students take an assessment at the beginning and take the same assessment 12 weeks later, because sometimes it's just hard to see how good we're doing because we are looking for a certain result. And if we haven't gotten that result, we're like, we're not getting results. And then we take an assessment. We'd be like, dang, I've improved in 8 areas. Because when you got your own measuring stick in your head, like I'm trying to be in a bikini. If I'm not in a bikini, I ain't done nothing, right? And so assessments are super dope to help you assess where you started versus where you are today. So thank you so much for saying that, Tamika. Yeah, Stacy said she just read a book called Gut Intelligence. Yeah, clean up your gut. It will clean up your mental health. It helps significantly. One of our graduates of our plant-based coaching certification and our business accelerator, shout out to Gio. When she came and started working with us, she was a therapist and she still is. So she was a therapist when she started. She's still a therapist today. I was just emailing with her not too long ago, actually. And I said, Jill, why are you getting certified in plant-based nutrition as a therapist? And she was like, because I need to help my patients eat better to help with their depression and their anxiety. I was like, bingo, brilliant. I wish more mental health specialists would do more continuing education in nutrition science. I really wish they would. This is the kind of ed that we need to see in our mental health specialists. Like, how dope is it to have a therapist who is also well-versed in nutrition science? So they're not just helping you for all the other markers of mental health, but they're also telling you that what you're eating is negatively impacting your mental health. And they can tell you how to eat to correct it. So I was just like, wow, like she needs to be the possibility model for other mental health specialists. Your gut plays a huge role in how you're feeling and how you manage stress. So that's super good. I love it. Okay, this is great. If this resonated with y'all today, make sure y'all share it with somebody who needs to hear it, because a lot of people close to us are really struggling with health and it's stemming from chronic stress and they're trying to correct it with like food and all that stuff and it's not working. And so make sure you guys share this episode. Okay, I think that is it. It was so wonderful spending time with y'all today. So listen, back here, same time, guys. I hope the assessment helped y'all today. Y'all have a blessed and stress-free day. Bye, y'all. You tuned in today because, like me, you refuse to let your good become the enemy of your great. You're not settling for good health when optimal is well within reach. If you're ready to go from good to great, visit lisaangelsmith.com to learn more about our plant-based health coaching program, Farm to Table, and our plant-based business accelerator and coaching certification. But before you go, if you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider rating and reviewing this podcast. Until next time, remember, radical obedience is still undefeated. Stay obedient.